This is an absolutely awesome story, and this is something I was thinking about recently too, because we've seen this happen in the past. But basically, what's going on is it's a serious financial protest, and so what it is the MLB is pulling the All Star game out of Georgia over voting reform law. So basically, what happened was Georgia passed this voter quote unquote reform law, which is basically just an attempt to make it more difficult for Democrats to actually be able to vote. And so this is a common thing that happens. And, we see this all the time. Voter suppression is a huge thing. And so means of voter suppression are, requiring voter IDs, which make it harder for poor and minority voters to be able to vote because they have a tougher time getting those things. Also having less polling stations created, things of those nature. Having voter rolls purged, having voter date requirements months in advance of the election when it should be day of. Actually, it shouldn't even be day of. It should be automatic voter registration. But Republicans don't support that because then they can't win elections. So, those are the kinds of things that are voter suppression. It's very real, man. It's very real. You go to the ballot and all of a sudden you've been purged from the voter roll for no reason. So things of that nature really are a very big deal. And so what they've done is they've pulled their All-Star game out of Georgia over this law, which is really awesome. It says the MLB announced Friday that it is pulling its All-Star game for the 2021 season out of Georgia in protest of the state's new voting restrictions signed into law last month. Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, said in a statement the decision was made after conversations with teams and players, and that moving the July 13th game out of the Peach State is, quote, the best way to demonstrate our values as a sport. The MLB draft will also be moved out of Georgia. Damn. Major League Baseball fundamentally supports voting rights for all Americans and opposes restrictions to the ballot box, Manfred said. And so a bunch of these bunch of losers like, Brian Kemp are whining about this, which is pretty hilarious. It says the measure, among other restrictions, puts limits on ballot drop boxes and when they can be used, minimizes the period in which a Georgia resident can apply for a mail-in ballot, institutes photo ID requirements for absentee voting, and bans giving out food or drink within 150 feet of polling places, including those waiting in line to vote. So all of these, this is voter suppression. Voter suppression is literally to discourage somebody from being able to vote, or in effect, prevent somebody from being able to vote. This is what happened literally, after, even really in the early Jim Crow days, even, with the black codes and stuff like that. But this is what Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting against. These exact things, this is exactly what he was fighting against. They even had to institute literal constitutional amendment. It's the 24th Amendment, where they had to ban poll taxes because they would start charging people to literally vote, which is insane. So these are the kinds of things, and it's a historical trend in the United States, preventing people to vote. And anytime you're doing this kind of bullshit, what you're doing is you're trying to make it so people can't vote, because you lose when the people can't vote. And really, from a political science perspective, more people being able to vote obviously is sort of the main way of looking at whether or not a democracy is really a democracy that only allows, like, hypothetically, let's say 2% of its people to vote, whereas it allows like 70 or 80. Which one is more effective or better representative democracy? Obviously the one that allows 70 or 80%, which is pretty awesome to see. It says Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy called the restrictions unacceptable and a step backwards. And Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian said the law includes provisions that will make it harder for many underrepresented voters, particularly black voters, to exercise their constitutional right to elect their representative. So this is going to cost the state of Georgia millions of dollars. Like, these kinds of things, they literally cost them millions of dollars for the economy. And so what this ends up doing is it's a real financial penalty, essentially, for passing this kind of law. I remember, I think it was like the NCAA or the NBA that had pulled out of North Carolina because of their transgender bathroom bill. But this is really great because you're really putting your money where your mouth is, especially with the sort of coefficient that I have of, hey, for the MLB, like, how much can this hurt them? This can definitely hurt them, man. People can boycott, the MLB, stop watching. This could definitely hurt their viewership. So a lot of props to them, man. And this is a really big way to seriously provide an actual sort of penalty for Georgia passing this law. I mean, it's really hard. People could go out and like peacefully protest and stuff, but at the end of the day, what is that really going to do? This is actually going to really do something. And as you kind of do this kind of stuff, you really are. This does impact poorly, a state where they pull out. So this is really dope to see, man. Big shout out to the MLB. Big ups.